when we started, I was like 15, like tops. And so like I was even like missing a bunch of school to like go write music. Chris had already graduated. So I was like failing my classes too to write music. And it's kind of funny, like I put my whole life into it, you know, and that's kind of what made it so hard when it wasn't there anymore, because it's like that was like everything to me for the longest time. So it just felt weird. Like I didn't feel like myself for like years, and I didn't really understand why, you know?
Real quick before getting into today's episode, I just wanted to mention a few things. Going to do this as quick as possible, I promise. First things first, we have a Discord server if you're not already a part of it. It's the best place to get all the news and updates about the podcast, but it's also a thriving community of people just talking about MySpace, deathcore, metalcore, all the fun stuff. Also, we do these podcast recordings live on Twitch every single Wednesday, 6 p.m. EST. If you want the fully unedited, unfiltered versions of these, as well as being able to be a part of the conversation via Twitch chat, it's a fun time. Come check it out. Last thing I want to plug, we recently launched a Patreon. We finally did it. People have been asking us for a way to support the podcast, and yeah, this is our way to do so. So if you want behind the scenes posts, if you want to be the first to know about upcoming guests and events, if you want early access to episodes, if you don't want platform ads and no YouTube ads, stuff like that, Patreon is the way to do so. We also have a supporter-only Discord chat, as well as these group calls that Yan and I do every second Friday. So any of that interests you, or if you simply just want to support the podcast, I'll be leaving a link to the Patreon in the description below, as well as the Discord and the Twitch. So enough yapping. Thank you so much, and enjoy this episode. Alex Koehler, welcome
What's
to
up?
the Brutality podcast. How are we doing, my man?
Oh, I'm good, man. How are you guys?
Dude, I don't want to speak for the both of us. I know I said I do that a lot, but I'm really stoked, dude. It's awesome because I'm often in your stream, but as you know, chatting, but seeing you right now, it's amazing, dude. I'm really excited, for real.
Yeah, I mean, it's cool to be a part of it, dude. Thanks for having me on.
Of course, it's been requested, dude. Let me tell you that much.
It has indeed been requested. Absolutely.
That's awesome. I was already seeing some of my my regulars in the chat as well.
Yeah, Mazda is here. I was telling people that probably one of your core communities since the beginning. You a lot of people from your stream I'm seeing, so it's cool.
Yeah. The crew is here. Thanks, guys.
They're ready.
Oh yeah, man. Well, dude, I mean, it's great to have you here. For us, I mean, we've talked about this publicly. We started this podcast maybe a year and a bit ago. We were making some lists at the very beginning of guests that we've wanted to have on the show, and you were on that list since day one. So it is cool to have you on here. And we're kind of talking about this ahead of time too. You know, it would have been cool to have you early on, but I think it's even cooler now that you've got a few EPs under the belt. Yep. You got the new project. You just dropped the brand new EP, The Birth of Death. So I want to talk about, obviously, what we do here mostly is go back in time, you know, but I do want to talk about all the new stuff as well. So how's the band been? How's Ameonna been? The Birth of Death is, candidly speaking, by far my favorite material of yours. I think you guys found this like sweet spot on this one. You guys upped a bunch of different things on this one that I really appreciate. So how's the reception been? How's it been going for y'all?
Oh, it's been good, man. I mean, we've kind of from the very beginning, like when we were writing music, like we said that like we're not going to try to like sound like any band. We're just going to write the stuff that we enjoy. And I feel like by the time we got to this third EP, we've kind of refined that sound. And I mean, it turned out sick. I'm really proud of it. I hope you guys like it. I'm stoked I finally got to share it with you guys because we've been sitting on it for a while. So
yeah, it feels like I heard, and don't get me wrong, first material was good as well, but it feels like there's more, I don't know if personality is the right word, but like there's more confidence, like it's more of a unique sounding material, and I was there when you played it, you know, on your stream, and I was just like, oh, okay, it feels like a super signed version of the first material. And I've seen the comments, and so far everybody seemed to be on that same page of just like, oh, like, you know, they double down on you know, on this. So it's you know, it's awesome, dude. I was watching and even the merch, dude, super sick. I saw it. So congrats, honestly.
Thanks, dude. Yeah, I mean, it was sick. Like, I feel like the more that you like play and like write music together, the more you kind of like fill it out. You know what I mean? Because at first we were kind of just like, we were just writing whatever. Like, we just wanted to have fun. So it was kind of a little bit all over the place. But with this one, it was kind of like all the different elements, but like in one. You know what I mean? And we did it completely ourselves. Like, we recorded it ourselves, mixed it ourselves, mastered it ourselves. Like, Pablo did all the engineering, all the mixing, all the mastering. So it was like 100% like our sound. You know what I mean? I thought that was really cool.
It's crazy. I don't even understand the amount of things that Pablo can do in general. It's just mind blowing.
What can't he do?
I mean, like, it's insane.
Yeah, he's a savant, man. He really is. He's talented, man. There really is like nothing he can't do. Like, musically, like, name it, he could do it, and he could do it well too.
His vocals too. I mean, like, I was just like, okay, he's got everything basically. He's drumming and all. It's insane, you know, like his part and everything. And even in the new material, I feel like it's really like the drum was good. Don't get me wrong before, but on this one, like, it feels bouncier maybe, and just like maybe more aggressive. It's insane, you know. So yeah.
I think it was kind of like mixed that way too, because sorry, my allergies, man. Like, our pre-pro we always did with Pablo too, and like our pre-pro kind of sounded more like this album did. I mean, the mix and masters of the first two EPs turned out freaking awesome, but like, it was just, I think there's like something special about being able to do everything yourself, you know what I mean? Because it's like the small things that you like pick up on. It just seems like you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I mean, like, again, no disrespect, our first two EPs, Mike Sam killed that shit. Like, I was so stoked. It just feels good to be doing music again, you know?
Must be special for you guys too, you know, like, because where you're now, you know what I mean? Like, you know these guys since, you know, forever. So to see where you came from, and also as artists, right? Like, it must be special for you to work with these guys, because each of you just, you know, step up your game so much. So I don't know for you if it just feels like you're still with your people and stuff like that, but I guess it was probably awesome to see where they're at now, like writing with them, right?
Yeah, I mean, I honestly, like, I was really nervous because I was like, before we started doing this, I was in like a weird place mentally. Like, I had told myself that I like wasn't going to do this again, and I convinced myself that it was bad for me too. It was like a really weird like place to be, like, mentally. So for the whole time I was out at Chelsea Grin, I wasn't practicing like my screaming vocals at all. I was singing a lot. Like, I was like, every time I was in my car, like on the way to work, on the way home, I was singing. And I got better at singing, but then when we started doing this, I was like really scared at first. I was like, shit, man, I haven't screamed in years. Like, I don't even know if I can. But just the fact that I was keeping my voice going with all this singing made it so easy to just jump back into it. You know what I mean? So I was stoked. And not only that, but like better than ever. You know, being healthy plays a huge part in that, you know. Back in the day, like, I obviously wasn't taking care of my body. I wasn't in shape. I was just killing myself slowly. And now that I'm healthy, like, it shows in the music. It's like I'm stoked. Like, I don't really have words to say, man. It just feels good to be back.
Dude, it's awesome. And I think I can speak for everybody saying that, like, there's clearly, don't get me wrong, I always loved your vocals. We're gonna definitely talk about that. I mean, your EP is like twice in my home. I really love what you did, but hearing you now, it feels like so much more in control, and just like you really, as a vocalist overall, improved a lot, right? Like, I keep talking about self-inflicted, not to jump too too quickly, but like those high pitch, and like I think the song was like Broken Bounds, I think that's the name, but like you have those amazing highs that really sound like you. Like no one ever. It's really and it shines in your music at the moment. I gotta say, like I'm hearing that back, but even more in control. So it's cool, dude. Like it's awesome, really.
Yeah, it's funny because like I tell this story to the people that I coach vocally too. Like back in the day, there was like no information on like heavier vocals. You know what I mean? Like there's Melissa Cross, but really that was it. So when I was learning how to do vocals, like I had no guidance. I was just like sitting in a room, just screaming and trying to figure it out. And as I went on throughout the years, like I was still trying to figure it out as I went. And I feel like I didn't start getting comfortable until like the Evolve EP. And even after that, like I like got comfortable with my sound, and it was like a steady improvement. But these like last couple of years, especially being able to do like a lot of research on it and like all the information that's out there now, all the like professional vocal coaches that like dive into it, you get, once you learn and understand more exactly like what's going on, it's like you could tap into it better. It's like, oh, if someone could have just said that like 10 years ago, like that would have been dope, you know? But it was a long learning process, man. Honestly, like I'm kind of surprised even like our first couple of records did very well, because I basically didn't know what I was doing. I was kind of just doing it. So
yeah, I think there was maybe like the fact that it was just like pure energy. Like I feel like when Chelsea Grin arrived into the scene, dude, it shook everything, you know, like it was kind of the sweet spot between you guys. Were not too death, but at the same time it was bouncy. It was like the perfect record for like someone who's getting into deathcore. I feel like the EP and Desolation of Aiden, like there's so many of my friends who usually don't listen to much, I don't know, like Whitechapel, but they would hear that and they would be like, oh shit, that's actually good. So that pure raw energy worked for you guys, even though with perspective you're like, I don't know what I was doing. It really worked very well. You know, people are still talking about it, to be fair. So
I mean, luckily I always had like a good work ethic about it. Like I was always trying to get better. But you know, it's just like it was still kind of like a guessing game though, you know, like, and I would always tell my band too, like I'd always want to like practice a bunch before we go into the studio, but we'd always do this thing where we'd get off this big tour, we'd write the record, and then we'd go record the record. And in that process, I wouldn't be able to like practice at all unless I was like on my own, or, you know what I mean? And I always felt like once we were on tour, I always kind of like fell into my comfort zone better. But going straight from like 2 months from being home into the studio, I was always in like panic mode. I'm like, oh my God, like, but it worked out, man.
There's like something about not being able to trial it either with a live crowd, like, and not being able to, you know, kind of work through songs by just playing them, even if it's just jamming them, right? Like at least in that process, you can kind of toy around with it. But yeah, it is tough when you're just, you know, you're laying it down and you didn't have the time to really see what the options were and to really feel something out. And that's something that
testing phase.
Yeah. And this is, I mean, to kind of go back on the recent EP, like I read an interview you reposted a couple of days ago talking about how you rewrote most of the songs like 8 to 10 times before getting them just right, which feels like a far cry for what you were just describing, right? Of like going straight into the studio without having really much time to prep, right?
Yeah, it was kind of, we did things really differently this time, because as long as I've been writing music, I've always had like someone would write the instrumentals first, send it to me, and then I'd kind of write the lyrics to the instrumental. But with this one, like we wrote the instrumental to the lyrics. And like I came up with the idea and the concept and the whole story, and like I told like Pablo and Jake about it, and like broke down this whole story that I came up with. And then Pablo just started writing to it. And I just wanted to make it, because I'm a big fan of poetry. And I always write like my vocals as a poem first, and it eventually gets kind of dissected and elongated once I put it to the song. But with this record, I really wanted it to stay in that format. Like I wanted it to be like poetic and
haikus only.
Yeah.
Imagine.
And I just didn't want to compromise either. So like I'd have stuff written and I felt like maybe it didn't portray the story as well, or maybe it wasn't as poetic. So I would just keep rewriting it. I'd be stoked on it one day and then I'd hate it the next. But it was good that way because I was able to like really refine it to the point where it's like, okay, this is exactly what I want to do. And there was like no compromise, you know, it was sick.
That's awesome. There's like something too, I guess, about, you know, because you guys are producing yourselves and mixing and doing everything yourselves. I guess that allows you as well the time to really take the time you guys want to on these sorts of things. And if it takes longer because you rewrote the songs 10 times, and that's chill, right? Like no one's expecting, there's not a label behind you telling you need a record by this date or whatever. And even at that, I mean, let's be real, the 3 EPs in like a year and some change. So it's not the material it's not the amount of material that's lacking, but you know.
Yeah. We always have a deadline though. Like we always do. And like, cause Pablo is back and forth between here and Nashville. He's always out touring. So we did have a deadline, but I had like a 6-month period where I could write it and work on it. But when it came time to record, we only had like 5 days to get it done or something like that. It's always like really short. So I was really stressed out. But the period leading up to it, like, yeah, it was, yeah, it's crazy, man. I'm super stoked on it. I'm glad it turned out the way it did. It was cool to really show like my poetic influence, and it was cool to like tell a story too, you know. It was just a little bit different because the first 2 EPs were all about personal struggle, which was easy for me because I had like years of personal struggle that I needed to get off my chest anyway. So it kind of wrote itself. But with this album, I feel like I had more pressure. It was all self-imposed pressure though. It was all pressure that I was putting on myself. And it, like, I felt like I was going crazy at times. I'm like, what? Like if we did 2 albums already and I flew through it and was fine. And now I'm like being hard on myself and like all this shit. But I just think, you know, I think that stuff played into why it turned out the way it did too. You know what I mean? Just being that perfectionist and like expecting more of yourself, you know, trying new things in the studio. And yeah, it worked out. I'm really proud of it.
Yeah, I feel it's cool to see that as well because like I watched you did a podcast like a few years back. I think you talked a lot about like you know, working out and stuff. I don't remember the podcast you did, but you talked a little bit about, you know, when you left Chelsea Grin and stuff like that. And I remember you talked about maybe more difficult times in your life, but I feel like now being part of your stream, hearing you talk about it, you feel really at peace with a lot of that stuff, and you're super open with it as well. So I kind of want to commend you on that because it's not like people, because we're so used to have a lot of content, just assume that it's easy to do that and talk about it, but it's actually not, you know, like it's very vulnerable to talk about like these moments and stuff like that. And I just wanted to tell you that it's cool that you're doing that, especially with people that you look up to. Sometimes just to hear that someone that seems really confident doing this, you know, all these things, music, you just assume that everything is always perfect. But like when they share and they talk about what you feel like, oh my God, okay, so can do this, you know, like it gives you more power. So I think it's cool that you're doing that and that it feels this way. You know, I'm not saying you never struggle. It just feels like you're at peace with that stuff now. So it's cool. Yeah,
dude. I mean, it took a long time to get there. And at the time I didn't even realize what it was. But I was like, I was struggling with like this identity crisis and like not knowing who I was really. Because I'd done Chelsea Grin my whole life since I was a 15-year-old kid. So all of a sudden like the real world feels different. I feel different. And it was kind of hard to navigate because I didn't really understand like what exactly I was feeling. But then when I did that track with Taylor and Luke, I don't know, it just like, it kind of like everything kind of came back to me. Like I felt like complete again. It's like, oh yeah, like I love doing this stuff. This stuff makes me happy. This is my passion. Like, why am I focusing on stuff that doesn't make me happy just because I feel like I have to, you know? It was almost like I was punishing myself to an extent. It's like, I have to work this job that I don't like. I have to like do all this stuff because like, this is who I am now. You know what I mean? So being able to like have that passion back, I don't know. It felt like it was just like a missing piece that finally got put back. And I was like, oh, how come I didn't realize this before? Like, it seems so simple, but
Yeah, it's just
Right.
really wholesome, dude. Like I've seen the comments, and it's just like, when you just announce, Ameonna, and like you were like everybody's just like, even if I'm honest, like since I'm talking a lot about the good old days on my page, so many people write to me thinking that I don't know that Ameonna and you're back and everything. So they're just like, hey, in case you don't know, and they keep sharing like, hey, he's back. So people are just like super stoked. So I guess for you, it must have been heartwarming to see that, right? Like to be welcomed like that must have been, because the scene was different back then. I think we talked about it a few times, but back then it was more competitive maybe between bands and stuff like that, as opposed to now where it's just like, wow, oh yeah, he's back.
Just a quick second to talk about the sponsor of today's video, Indie Merch Store. The Tony Danza Tap Dance Extravaganza. They are back, and they have announced that they will be playing this year's Furnace Fest. So what better time to celebrate one of our favorite bands? The band has released 6 of their classic designs from over the years, available now over at indiemerchstore.com. If you head on over there, you can also use code BRUTALITY at checkout for 10% off to help support the show, and well, hey, save you guys a little bit of money. So thank you so much to Indie Merch Store for sponsoring this episode, and now back to the show. Is there pressure though coming back in? I'm sure there is some amount of like, people have these expectations. There's these ex-members from X band, and how was that for you kind of coming back? And yeah, what was the pressure like?
Honestly, I feel like I got kind of lucky because, like you said, yeah, and like there used to be a lot more like negativity in the scene, and I remember like when I first left Chelsea Grin, I felt like it was like the reception was just like, oh, thank God, like thank God he's gone, like this guy sucks, like I had people like calling me a junkie and shit, and like I was just like, Jesus Christ, I didn't realize like I was so hated, you know what I mean? And then so coming back, I didn't really feel a lot of pressure. Like I knew, like I knew some people have stuck with me the whole way, you know what I mean? But I was kind of expecting like a mixed reception. But like when we first started putting out that music, it was just like all love, and I was like, holy shit, like this is great. This is like, I don't know. It felt so welcoming, and it felt, I don't know. It's just crazy how different like the scene is. Like, I feel like it's just way more embracing now. Like people just like want to hear your music. Like they don't care if you like switch things up, they're just stoked to like listen and stoked to be there. And I feel like that shift happened in like the 6 years that I was gone, because I mean, like I said, like when I left, like it kind of like, I was like really self-conscious about it. 'Cause I was like, fuck, I was really hated that bad. Jesus Christ, Dude,
probably all people that didn't listen to Chelsea Grin in the first place, celebrating your demise.
Probably, but you know what sucks with these things though? These people are always super loud. That's the problem. Because like, I'll be honest, from my perspective, it was just devastating. And I know for a lot of people it was. I was just like, are you freaking kidding? What? Like, so, but the problem is, it's not as loud as people hating and saying like he sucks and stuff like that. But like, I know for a fact so many people were just like, well, what's happening? Like for me, my top 3 was just like, it was Mitch, Ricky, and you, right? So I was just like, well, what's happening? So, but I'm trying to put myself in your shoes, and it's just like, oh, like you're already going through stuff. It feels like people forget that people are human. They're going through things, you're not helping anyone by saying, oh, he's this or he's that. Like, if you like the band at all, maybe having a little bit of empathy and trying to understand the perspective does a way better long term. But again, these people are loud. So that's what you.
Yeah, I mean, in a way, I think it was good to take such a break, because there was a while there too, like where I quit social media too, because like I was really struggling seeing anything that involved my old life and like anything about Chelsea Grin. So I even got off social media for a long time, and I kind of just totally disappeared. But like in a way, like that was kind of good, because it's like a lot of people don't know like what they have until it's gone, so to say. You know what I mean? It's like if you're used to someone being there, maybe you kind of like lose like the respect or the feeling for it. So you like don't really care as much. And then once it's gone for a while, it's like, oh wow, like you know, at least that's what it seemed like, you know, because the reception when I came back, like I remember sitting there when we put out the first song, and I was just waiting for like some of the hateful comments, like it was all positive, and I was just waiting for like the comments to come in trashing it. It just like never happened. I was like, oh my God, like I've never had this many like positive like comments in a row. There's like no hate at all. Like it was mind blowing, man. I'm like, is this even real? Like
the mods were working overtime. Yeah.
Wow, man.
It's cool to see that change though, you know, and it seems like that change is not only amongst the fans, but it's like the bands in the scene too. Because like back then, like you were saying, like it was really competitive. Like bands, like even the bands that you're friends with, you were still in competition with them because there was only so much, you know, room at the dinner table, you know what I mean? So it's constant, like kind of clawing, trying to get to the top. And now
you've got a song about that.
Yeah. I mean, with the way the internet is now too, there's just like there's so much more opportunities for a band to capitalize. So it doesn't feel like they're always clawing at each other, and you could like get along and like, you know, support each other instead of like, you know, just trying to be on top the whole time. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's really genuine. Like you see a band in another's band comment section, just like you guys are, you know what I mean? Like even if they never played together or something, like they're just like supporting. You wouldn't see much of that. Like at least from memory, it wasn't really like that, you know, like bands all in the comment section. And even now you see kids, you know, with the revival, like younger bands, and even them, it's the same, like genuine, just everybody's supporting together. So it's cool, man. And it's cool to hear that now, you know, you're here and you feel at your place, and it's not, you didn't get like the hate from back then. Like these people are probably just tune out, you know, they don't even or somewhere else.
Probably didn't even care that much in the first place.
I mean, look, there's something to be said, I'm sure, about kind of the timing of your exit of the music scene and how dog shit of a place deathcore in general was at that time. And now if you compare it to, you know, the year of our Lord and Savior 2025, when deathcore is as big as it's ever been, you know, I'm sure that has also somewhat to play with, like, I don't know, I just feel like deathcore it's cool again, right? So it's there probably is something to that being like, okay, like everyone, you know, there's way more space for everyone specifically now because there's just so much going on, right?
Yeah. I mean, like when deathcore first came on the scene, like it was really popular. It was, you know, people, there's metal music obviously, but this was like an extreme form. It's like super heavy. And I feel like when I first discovered deathcore, I was like 14 or 15. And I remember, like, I know Jan's the same way. It's like my mind was blown. I'm like, this is the coolest music ever. And I feel like it was in a really good place. And then somewhere down the line, it kind of had that like downshift where it's like, it became like a joke, so to say. So even like deathcore bands were kind of like changing up their sound a little bit to try to carry on with the times rather than fall off completely. So yeah, I left when deathcore was like at its worst. And I honestly didn't even know that it had such a resurgence, just because I had removed myself from anything that involved the scene. Like I just didn't want to know anything. I didn't want to be a part of it. And it was so cool because like Jake would tell me, he's like, no, you don't understand. Like deathcore is like more popular now than it's ever been. And I was like, really? And it was just so cool. It just like had that I think we just booted all the haters out, man.
Dude, I couldn't believe it, by the way. Like I heard about Ameonna before you guys even announced it, because Jake was following me, which I didn't know, and he responded to one of my stories, and he saw your EP on my wall, and he's just like, no way that it's on your, it seems obsessive. I mean, it's a super huge like thing, like it's kind of obsessive, like you it's at two places, and my friends are laughing about it. They're like, it's everywhere in your place. I'm like, yeah, it is. But yeah, so he replies and he's like, dude, don't tell anybody, but you're gonna be happy because like we're back. And he told me about the old lineup. I was like, what is happening? You know, so I didn't talk about, like, to be fair, I didn't say anything. So I'm okay with that. But I heard before, and so I've been stoked ever since, you know, because yeah, all these years, I think a lot of your fans and people were just wondering, he's gonna come back. And then I heard the podcast, and it felt like you wouldn't, because you were mostly talking about like self-love, working out and stuff. So I'm like, okay, he's moving on. So I feel like for a lot of people, it was just like, he's back for real, so it's cool. It's awesome.
How was it kind of getting the band back together? Like what was that process like, linking up with the boys again and putting the music out? It was kind of Jake first, right?
Yeah. I mean, like I said, I was in that weird place for a long time, and I just thought, like, I told myself that like it was bad for me. So like I was, by the time I did that interview that you were talking about, like I was still in that like kind of state of confusion. Like, it's like, okay, I'm not doing music again because I can't, like, that's bad for me. It's an old life, but then Jake kind of had the idea at the same time that I was like talking to Taylor and Luke. And Taylor just hit me up. He just was like, dude, like we should collab. We should do a song together. And I was like, sure, why not? Like, whatever. I didn't think we'd actually do it, but then he got Luke involved and sent me that song. And I was like, okay, like, let me just give this a shot. Like, it's just for fun, whatever. And then I did it, and I was like, it felt so good. And Jake had been trying to get me to meet up with him because he wanted to talk about doing a project again too. But I wasn't really taking it serious because I just didn't think that I just didn't think it was for me anymore. You know what I mean? But once that first song got tracked, it was like a chain reaction. Like we got Pablo involved, and it went from there. And it was cool, man. It was like feeling at home again,
That's so cool, man. I want to take us back to we need to talk about those days, like, can you bring us back to that infamous EP that I'm pretty sure I talk about it every day almost. I'm not even kidding. I'm pretty sure I talk about it every single day. Okay. So there it is. I'm kind of curious, like, because you were kids, right? I mean, like super young, like we're talking freaking 15 and stuff, and you self-recorded it, right?
Well, we like, it was like me and Chris Kilborn, we started the band, and we would just practice in his mom's basement. It was just me and him. So a vocalist and a guitarist, a vocalist that just started doing vocals, and we would practice in his mom's basement, and he had some like recording equipment too. So it kind of started that way. And the first stuff we were writing, it was god awful. I was god awful. But it kind of just turned into because Chris Kilborn, he was like a classic rock guy. I remember I like burnt him a couple CDs with like 20 of like my favorite deathcore tracks on it. I was like, listen to this on repeat, and then we're gonna start writing this. And it kind of like evolved from there. By the way. And we tracked it for real with God, I can't even remember his name, but he's like a local guy, but he had worked with like the Used and stuff like that. But we paid for it entirely ourselves. And then like we weren't even signed back then or anything. And we did it old school. Like we were promoting on MySpace. We were sending our record to like record labels. We did it in like a press pack. We like spray painted it gold and shit to like try to get their attention. And we'd go hang out at like shopping malls and like pass out demos and shit and be all over MySpace. So it's crazy. Like how like kind of old school it felt. We'd pass out like flyers for shows and stuff like that. And yeah, I mean, it really was super DIY. Like, although we ended up re-releasing the first EP under a label, and that's when we added Recreant to it. But we had Recreant written and we were performing it already. But yeah, I mean, it was just like a couple kids just had a passion for it, and I was when we started, I was like 15, like tops. And so like I was even like missing a bunch of school to like go write music. Chris had already graduated. So I was like failing my classes too to write music. And it's kind of funny. Like I literally like I put my whole life into it, and that's kind of what made it so hard when it wasn't there anymore, because it's like that was like everything to me for the longest time. So it just felt weird. Like I didn't feel like myself for like years, and I didn't really understand why,
What's really special too is you talked about Recreant. It's really objectively still one of the biggest deathcore song to this day. Like how do you feel about that? Because like it's still it's one of the most covered song, I think, like period.
Dude, I've never seen a song covered by local deathcore bands more than like Recreant takes the top 10-fold, 100-fold. It's insane. Every local band that does a cover, if you play deathcore, it's been Recreant for since that song dropped.
And it's still one of the biggest Chelsea Grin song to this day, playing like let's be honest, like if you they still performing and stuff, it's still one of the biggest songs. So I'm curious to know maybe how you feel, you know, going back. It's one of the very first songs, you know. So
yeah, I mean, for me, it's kind of weird because like it's so old, you know what I mean? And you know, I've gotten better at vocals since then too. But yeah, I don't know. It's just one of those things. It's kind of crazy, like almost surreal, like how it's become such a popular song in the scene. Cause like when I was younger, there was like, you know, the Suicide Silence songs and like the early Whitechapel songs that were like those songs that were like always played, always covered. And I was like, man, that's so cool. So it's kind of crazy to like be in that position. You have this song that's like over 10 years. Yeah, like what, 15 years at this point, old, but it's still like super popular, and it's crazy. I love it. I can't personally listen to it just because I can't stand the way I sounded, but like I love that it's like still popular. Like I love that it's been such a iconic song, you know.
yeah, and there's a few moments on it too. Like like people are talking a lot about Recreant, but like Lifeless with the Get the Fuck Up. Like I mean, I remember I had a hoodie. I would mosh, you know, and it was written "Get the Fuck Up" in the. I thought it was so cool. I was like 15, probably moshing terribly. But you know, I feel like you also through the entire like Crew Banger, like all those songs had moments, like raw, cool moments. And back then during MySpace, you kind of needed that. Like some words and some like impact fonts and stuff like that. So I feel like you
something
guys,
edgy, yeah.
yeah. So you guys starting with that, I feel like it helped. And also the artwork. Let's be honest. I feel like the artwork played a role. Oh, we don't even see it, but whatever. It played. I should have prepared that better, but yeah, no, it played a huge role because it's very memorable, right? Like I don't know if you remember how it went, because the artist you chose, I found him like, but he's a huge artist now and stuff. Like I would be curious to know how it went to find that person.
It's actually kind of a funny story because before we were, when the band first started, we called ourselves Ahazia. And that's what we were known as for the whole first beginning. Like we wrote Lifeless, a lot of the songs we were known as that. But it was spelled really funky. It's kind of spelled how Ameonna is, but we were like, man, like no one can pronounce our name. Like we can't have a name that no one could pronounce. So like we were trying to figure out a name. And we had this other name for a while that we were almost going to go with, but it was always corny. So we pulled out last minute and then just decided to just stick with the Ahazia. And we sent we had the EP written. So like we sent we paid for the artwork and it was going to say Ahazia and all this shit. And then after we had already paid for it and everything, we had decided to call ourselves Chelsea Grin. And we're like, but we already paid for this artwork. We already have it all done. Like, what are we going to do? So we just decided, like, even though we paid for it, to scrap it. Like, we have to go with this name. It was like one of those names that, like, when you said it, it was like, that's it. It's like the light bulb. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So we ditched Ahazia last minute, and it was just Chelsea Grin. The artwork, we paid for more artwork. And the guy that did it, like, he just did the Chelsea Grin. And then it was like, that's fucking perfect. You know, it was crazy how everything kind of just happened like way last minute too. Like it was a good call. It was one of those things, man, like the universe spoke to us and we just went for it.
It's funny because I cannot imagine it otherwise, right? Like now that it's, you know, like it's weird just imagining it wouldn't be that and stuff. It's very special. And I still fully remember, I couldn't find it on YouTube, I think, but like the memory I have is that you would tour during those days back when you would be recording Desolation of Aiden, I believe. You would tour with like For the Fallen Dreams and Attila a lot. Attila
all the time, yeah.
Attila all the time.
Yeah.
you guys made me want to be in a band because it feels like it was like so much fun, you know, like I would just see, it felt like a huge party, like studio dates and stuff like that. Do you remember a little bit a lot of that era? I mean, or
yeah, I mean, it was a party, man. Like we were all super young. Like we all looked up to like all these bands for so long, you know, like we just wanted to be that. And we were just this local band, you know, and then all of a sudden things started happening. We got signed to a real label. We started going on real tours. But we're just dorky kids. Like I had just barely graduated high school when we got our first like real tour that wasn't self-booked. And so it was just, you know, we were just kids. We were living our dreams. So we were eating it up. And us and Attila actually like had a similar path because we were on Static Factory Records together and we toured a bunch, and then, you know, Artery and all this stuff. And we kind of just came up together. So we toured with Attila probably the most out of any band. And then, yeah, For the Fallen Dreams. Those early days were fun, man. Like, because it didn't really feel like pressure, you know. It was just like, we have this opportunity to do something that we've always dreamed about, and this is great. This is awesome, you know. We just like had fun, you know. And as time went on, like we got a little bit more serious about it, which I think you need to. You know, you need to start treating things like it's a business. But I also feel like there was a period of time where we kind of lost that passion too, and it was just kind of like a job. And for me too, like I started really going down the path of just, you know, like it wasn't a party anymore. It was just me, you know, like I wouldn't even like go hang out with people. I'd just be drinking by myself, you know, and it just kind of, I think we just lost that spark for a minute, man. And then I guess like even us, you know, I said this earlier, but it's like, you don't realize what you have until it's gone, you know? And then once it's gone, it's like, oh fuck, like, why didn't I just take that more serious? Why didn't I just like pull myself together, you know? But I believe everything happens for a reason. You know, sometimes you need that slap in the face. You need to hit rock bottom to like really learn about yourself and like realize like what your priorities in life are, and like understand that if you keep going this direction, then you're going to either be dead or you're going to be in a horrible place. So, I mean, I've said this a lot, like on stream and stuff, but like, I'm glad everything happened. Like what I went through, was hell, and it was really hard, but like looking back on it now, like I'm thankful for it, and I wouldn't change it in any way because it made me who I am now, you know, and I'm more comfortable and happy with who I am now than I ever was, you know?
I read something.
Sorry, go ahead, man.
Well, I read or heard you kind of talk about the fact that kind of, you know, you talked earlier about, you know, getting into the band so young, and that was your entire identity. Like, you've never had a job, right? Like there's just like these things, and then add to that just the culture of just partying, and then getting into more of that stuff. There seems to have been, I think you described it as, you know, you were still a kid.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right. And then you kind of got slapped in the face and had to, you know, quote unquote, become a man. Like there was like that was kind of just like a process of like, well, hey, I got to grow up at some point. There needs to be something to deal with. And
yeah, I mean, it kind of, cause yeah, we were touring while I was still in high school. Like it was all self-booked, but like I never had to have that like real life moment. Like I feel like a lot of people, when they get out of high school, it's like they have that moment where it's like, oh shit, like I got to go get a job. And it's like a really big learning process in that point. And I was just off, you know, I was just a kid living my dream, you know what I mean? And there wasn't a lot of, it was almost like you feel invincible because like you don't understand reality almost, you know? So, it was difficult, and it was, you know, crazy to go through, especially so much later in my life. But it was an experience that I needed, because it was an experience that I should have gotten like years ago, but never did. So it really was like I was in like a teenage mindset, like well into my 20s, and I needed to like grow the fuck up. You know what I mean? So it was good. It was a hard slap in the face, but it was good.
And I think it's a good point too. You know, that's kind of why I'm doing my videos and all of that. I love showcasing that like touring isn't easy. Even though people feel like, oh my God, it's the dream and all of that, it's not easy. So like when you're a kid and it's all you know, and it's just like next thing you know, you drive for 17 hours and then you're playing and then there's a party, like it probably feels unreal, and it's just like you're, not to say you're out of touch, but you're just like it's another kind of life. So like imagine like even with a regular lifestyle, you know, people struggle with mental health and a lot of stuff. So imagine at that setting, super young, trying to process thing and just like mature and understand, like it's you know, for that's why we see that so often, I think, is because it is difficult. Yes, it's fun, you have great moments, great, it's an adventure, but I feel like people forget the other side of it, which can be maybe more difficult than what people think.
Yeah, right? I mean, you hit the nail on the head, because it's like you're living in an alternate reality, because like in real life, if you show up to your job drunk, you get fired. But in this life, you're encouraged to go on stage drunk. You know, you're encouraged to like always live in this rock and roll lifestyle. And to me, like I kind of latched onto that more than I should, because I was like, this is what rock stars do. This is how I should act. This is what I should do. Like, this is all the people that I look up to are doing this, you know what I mean? So it really was just like it was like an alternate reality. And, you know, you can only live that way so long, you know, before you find out what reality really is, you know?
Yeah. But I would be curious though, do you remember, you know, because you had bands you looked up to, right? Like Whitechapel, Suicide Silence. Do you remember the first moment you kind of met one of those people that you looked up to, like in a tour? Because you did awesome tours and stuff like that, you know? Chelsea Grin became freaking huge. So I'm curious to know what was like maybe one of the first moments that you were just like, oh my God, I'm playing with these people, or I'm talking to these people even.
I mean, honestly, it kind of happened like that from day one, because I was kind of like you were when you were young. I was on MySpace. I was always looking up bands. I was always listening to music. I was discovering bands every day, and I was just like idolizing these bands. I'm like, this is so cool, you know? So from day one, even when we started touring, it's like, oh my God, like I've been listening to these bands. I've been looking up their profile. Like I've been learning everything about these bands, and it's so crazy. But I think the biggest one for me, we weren't quite touring yet, but we played a local show with Suicide Silence, and we opened that show, and it was cool because the dudes in Suicide Silence, like they didn't treat us like a local band. They were just so cool, and I remember just being in the venue before the show started, like just talking to Alex. He just walked right up to our merch table, you know. And I was like, oh my God, dude, like I'm so starstruck. Like, this is so cool. And then just seeing like Mitch go on stage too, because he was like the person that like I wanted to be. Like I was modeling like my vocals after him, and to just see that. And then, you know, as more time went on to like be on tour and meet new people. I remember Mitch sent me a DM on Twitter once, because we got offered to do a tour with Suicide Silence. But we had other stuff going on, and we had to turn it down. And I didn't want to. Like I was like, dude, this is Suicide Silence. Like, who cares? Like, let's do it. So I was really bummed that we had to turn it down. And then Mitch even messaged me on Twitter and was like, dude, you should do this tour. And I was like, oh my God, this is so cool. You know, like, I can't believe Mitch is messaging me on Twitter. Like, what the fuck, you know, like, so yeah, that was probably the biggest, like, starstruck moment too, to just like, wow, this dude that I looked up to is just messaging me like nothing, like so regular, you know?
and I feel like it's just proving how fast you guys kind of exploded in the scene, right? Like it's just, it felt like that as a note. Like for me, I was just like, what is happening? Next thing you know, Dissolution of Aiden and stuff like that. Do you remember how it was just like, you know, with the EP, it was already going well, but do you remember how it felt when you released Dissolution of Aiden? Because I feel like it did well too, right? It did very well in the scene.
Yeah, I mean, looking back, I don't think we ever realized that we were blowing up, because, I mean, it was just always, I felt like we were right on the cusp, and I don't think we really realized that, like the trajectory we were going, you know what I mean? I remember there was this other time too. We were on tour with Asking Alexandria, and they would pull up in their bus every day, and we were just in this van. And I remember sitting there with Dan. We just like were like watching as this bus drives by. Like, that is so cool. And I remember Dan was just like, you know, that'll never be us, but that's still cool. So then, like, you know, being like, oh yeah, we'll never be that big. And then a couple of years later, touring in a bus ourselves, it's like, holy fuck, you know,
with the
like,
whole fucking album print on the side of the bus too. Dude, that was sick.
Yeah, I think we stayed pretty humble. It was kind of like an ignorant humble too, because I mean we were just dumb kids having fun, you know what I mean? But like I don't think we really like realized it, or at least I didn't. Like we noticed like the shows were bigger and stuff, but it's almost like when you're in that position, you always feel like you should be doing more, and like when it's a good thing to always be pushing yourself, you know, to always want to strive for more. But sometimes, like when you're always striving for that next big thing, you kind of forget to like stop and smell the roses a little bit. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and you're young, you're just like in the moment, you're with your friends, you know what I mean? Like you said, also, I feel like partying is also a big part of that, because like it's just like you look up to probably the next moment, you're just with your friends, like just, you know what I mean? Like I'm in my mind, I'm like friends, you know, and all these people, it was like a party vibe. So for you as a kid, it's just like you're living your dream. So you're maybe not focused on just like, okay, what's the next step? Oh, how are we? You don't even think about like how you're perceived probably. You're just like, looking to the next thing. What's the next show? What's the next tour? What's the next thing? So the
goalposts just keep moving at a certain point.
Yeah.
It's just, there's always just, okay, but we're not as big as this other band.
Yeah.
It just can always, you know.
And it was so much more competitive too. It's like, oh, like we need to be the headlining band, you know, like we can't settle for anything less. And like I said, all the bands were so competitive. There was only so much you could do. So like if you always wanted to be in that top spot, but if you weren't, like you feel like you weren't good enough, you know what I mean? But like the lifestyle thing, it was kind of funny because like I was completely sober until my senior year in high school, like when I just turned 18. Like I was hung out with like a bunch of like straight edge kids growing up, and I was never straight edge myself, but the fact that I was always around them, it never made me want to drink, because like I'm in like a group of friends that's never around. So I'm not like curious. But then when I turned 18, it's all of a sudden I was curious, but I still like, I wasn't doing it a lot, you know what I mean? But I remember when that switch flipped, 'cause, I was on tour, and I remember someone from one of the bands came up and was like, hey, do you want to drink? And I was like, nah, I drank yesterday, you know, 'cause I was kind of in that mindset. Like I should only drink once a week. And then that person was like, so, and then all of a sudden it like clicked in my head. I was like, yeah, so what? And from there, it was just like nonstop
game
party.
over, yeah.
Like, yeah. And I mean, like I kept it together for quite a while. Like I toured for 10 years. I think I had it together for about 8, but those last 2 years is when it started to really slip. 'Cause I mean, like any person, you could only keep that lifestyle up for so long, you know, like even if you originally didn't have like an addictive personality, if that's something you're doing every single day, eventually it's going to grow into something that you can't control. You know what I mean? And that's what it like snuck up on me, you know? And then once it was out of control, it was out of control. Like there's, you know, like, and I remember too, like I was starting to like fuck up a lot. Like I was, every now and then I'd play like a really bad show and my band would be super pissed off at me, or I'd get really drunk and have a blackout night and do something shitty, or like, you know what I mean? And it just kind of slowly got worse. And right before I left the band, like I had realized I had a problem and I was trying to clean it up myself. But I wanted help, but I didn't think rehab was something I could go to because I couldn't afford it. So I was just trying to figure it out on my own. And I had actually gotten sober on my own a few times leading up to that point. But when you're doing it on your own and there's no professional help, it's like you get a little too confident and you're like, oh, I could have a drink now. And it was just kind of like a constant up and down until it was just like complete spiral. You know what I mean?
And the environment too, right? Like as much as you can be super, like have all the determination and be like, I'm stopping, like you're constantly like temptations are there all the time. It's so norm. I talk like I toured. I didn't tour, but like it's so kind of like I'm talking like I did that. I didn't, but it feels like it's normalized. It's just like, you know what I mean? It's almost. We live in a world where you need to explain why you don't drink. It's kind of weird. You know what I mean? Like when you tell people I don't drink, you have to give a reason. Oh, it's because it's so weird, like, I think it makes it more difficult when you take a decision like that, especially with that lifestyle. It's almost like people are like, what is wrong with you? Like, it's almost like it's part of the job.
You've got your friends too that are used to drinking with you, being your drink buddies, I assume, the people you tour with and stuff like that too, right? These like previous kind of dynamics that are kind of already instilled, right?
Well, for me too, I had a lot of undiagnosed and untreated issues that I would fix with drinking. Like I've always had like really crazy anxiety and not really like really realizing it, but I would like drink to make it go away. I would drink to be social. It just became this thing that I turned to in order to like alleviate myself of like, depression, anxiety. Like it was something that would give me confidence. And I didn't realize I had like a lot of the stuff that I was struggling with internally until like after the fact and like going to rehab and getting treated for a lot of things. And it just kind of made me realize and it kind of fucked me up too, because now I'm 33 years old and I struggle socially like so bad. I struggle even hanging out with like my best friends or like even with my family. And because I relied on drinking to alleviate these feelings for so long that it's like I never learned how to deal with it without it. And now like I'm older and it's like I don't know how to deal with it, you know what I mean? So there's like a lot of obstacles that I've had since I've been sober that have, I'm still kind of weird, I'm getting better. But yeah, there's a lot of things that I still struggle with. But at least now I know like, it's better to like be struggling with it than to turn back to the old habits, because the old habits were, that's just a black hole, that's not the way to alleviate yourself. It's not the way to cure your issues, like I would just numb myself out. Cause I get like really overstimulated too, socially and all that. And I just like, I kind of feel like I'm going to explode like anytime I'm in a social situation. But like with like drinking, I would just numb myself out. And then once you get to that point though, that you're like not drinking to have fun, you're drinking to feel numb. That's when it's like, it's already too late. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Do you feel like streaming is kind of helping that a little? Because like I've noticed, because it's no secret, I'm always there pretty much during your streams. I mean, you have a beautiful community. It's very positive and it's really open. Do you feel like it's kind of helping that part of you, like just being able to be yourself, sharing, opening up and talking about these things? Do you feel like it helps in that way?
Yeah, I mean, it has helped a lot. I remember like the first week or two of me streaming, I was like really... I had like crazy anxiety and I was like, oh man, like, why didn't I think of this? If I'm streaming, I'm still kind of being in that social position. You know what I mean? But yeah, I mean, the people that show up to my streams, like my community, like they have been so amazing. Like they have really helped me get to the point where I am now. Cause like, I could just be myself, like I'm not worried about like trying to be cool or trying to impress people. Like I'm just myself. And like, I vibing with these people that are just themselves too and like super supportive. Like they don't care if I'm like being goofy as fuck, you know what I mean? Like, so it definitely has helped. It has like, it feels more natural now, like to just like set my stuff up to stream and like I just feel normal, whereas when I first started, I'm like, oh my God, you know what I mean? So it's helped. It's definitely started to push me in like the right direction, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I wanted to say congrats, because like it's harder than what people think building a community, whether or not you had an audience before, right? Like I mean, people know you, right? But still, building like a positive space and a good community is way harder than what people think, and you did that. So I feel like it's cool to hear that you're both dealing with anxiety and also being able to do that. And like I'm sure people hearing that right now being anxious are probably going to feel like they could maybe do something like that if you can. So that it's cool to hear, man. It's It's great.
Yeah, I mean, I I got lucky, man. I just like all the people that started showing up to my stream, they just, I mean, I was able to connect with a bunch of like-minded people. You know what I mean? And I feel like that isn't always the case. Like I feel like it's a rare thing to, you know, have so many people like that, like believe the same thing as you. It's like, yeah, just be yourself, be positive. Like, let's not focus on all the negative bullshit in the world. Let's not like let's accept the fact that we all have differences, and that's totally fine. Like, let's not jump down each other's throats for our differences and stuff like that. So it's just, I just got lucky. Like, my community rules. It was great from the start. And like, I didn't even expect that, you know what I mean? Like, I had high hopes, obviously, but I mean, it was just like, it was, shout out to my people, because it's been good since day one. So I appreciate you guys. I know. Yeah.
Now, they're hyping it. So, I was happy to see that. It's good vibes, man. Like, as someone who's there very often in your stream, it's cool to see, man. It's a beautiful community, for real.
You were kind of we were talking off stream before starting this, how it was also kind of a way for you to reconnect with just fans in general, right? Being away from playing shows for so many years, and to be able to kind of tap back into, you know, a way to communicate and interact with people that otherwise, you know, if it weren't for streaming right now, you know, who knows, down the line, we'll talk about shows and stuff later. But, you know, as of now, you know, it had been a few years since you hadn't really had like an opportunity to interact with the fans and people still following you. So it seems to be a cool way to do so, right?
I mean, like, for me, it was crazy, because like I kind of said this already, but it's just crazy how supportive people were, you know, because like when I first left, it felt like good riddance, you know what I mean? And then just seeing how, like, I don't know, like it felt like a totally different scene. Really, it was just like, oh my God, like these people have stuck with me this whole time. Like, this is awesome. So it helped coming back too, because it's like, you know, like I feel like I'm being received with like love and all this shit. So it made it easier to kind of get back into that like vibe and just, you know, go for it.
It's awesome, man, for real. And it's crazy to hear all of that, you know, because you went through a lot of stuff, but at the same time, if we talk musically, you guys have released like fairly different albums. Like, I mean, I talked about the early days, but like if we go into like My Damnation and like Hashes to Ashes, they're great albums and so different, and there's an evolution musically. So to hear that you were, you know, going through all that while releasing that, like it's kind of crazy. Do you remember though the conversation about the music itself, like trying new direction and stuff, or are you guys you went in studio and it was just like, let's do our thing type thing?
I mean, it was kind of because we had so many member changes. Like each album, there was always like one or two more members. So I don't know. There was like I always wanted to be really heavy and like stick to our roots, but like I wanted to like expand as well. But it was kind of always different, because it felt like we'd have like, some of us wanted to go this way, some of us wanted to go that way, and it was just always kind of like throwing it all together. And I feel like that's why some of our albums kind of like went up and down with the sound, you know, especially Ashes to Ashes with Jason. That was like the most different, you know, like in a good way. But I feel like there was never, because like when we first started, there was like a clear vision, you know, it's like, this is the band we wanted to be. This is how we want to sound. Like, this is how it's going to go. But like when you lose so many members over the time, it's like the band takes on different personalities based on the personalities of the new members. So yeah, I mean, it was just kind of, I don't know. I mean, we definitely argued a lot, for sure. It was always some sort of fight about like, oh no, that we can't write music like this. Let's do it like this, or you know, like. So I mean, that was kind of during the time too, where it kind of became like the passion. I mean, the passion was still there. But at the same time, it was like, I don't know. It was like to kind of, we were in a point where we were constantly butting heads, and there'd be like cliques among the band. You know what I mean? Like there was a while where like I didn't even want to hang out with anyone in the band. Like when Pablo joined the band, he was like the only one that I would go and like hang out with, because the rest of the band wanted to be doing this. I wanted to be doing that. and it just became like we started to split and pull apart from each other. You know what I mean? And a lot of that too is like just being on the road with each other for so long. It's like like when you move in with someone that's your best friend, after a couple of years, there are certain things they do that get on your nerves a little more than they did at first.
So, sometimes after a week,
like
but yeah. It's just sometimes you never know.
Yeah. And then, I mean, you're forced, like, cause we were touring like 7 to 8 months out of the year. So we were forced to be together always. And I feel like it's kind of easy to forget that it's like, oh, these guys are my friends. You know, you're focusing more on like the head bashing and like all that shit. So yeah, that was kind of, that was like, I feel like that played a big part into why they were willing to move on from me too, because I feel like we had already drifted apart, like, as friends anyway. Mm-hmm. So it was like, yeah, this dude is fucking up. Let's, you know, like, let's get away from him, you know? And I don't blame them at all. You know, like I definitely was a mess. So, but that the friction like had started like years leading up to that. And that definitely played a big part, I think.
Yeah, probably. And for them also, it's not, you know, they knew you were going through stuff, right? Because who knows if, you know, let's say, for example, you stayed there, maybe things would have gotten even like way worse. Who knows the final results of that? So like you definitely needed that time, you know, away and to take care of yourself in that regard. So.
Yeah, I mean, that was the kind of the I guess the deciding point is like, and also why there were so many like hurt feelings too, because it's like I wanted to get help, I just didn't think I could, you know. And I finally got the opportunity to go to rehab. It was being paid for, you know. I finally got help. I really wanted the opportunity to take what I've learned, take the therapy, take the tools, and like have that chance to like prove it. But with their mindset, it's like kind of what you said. It's like, okay, like he is getting help and we could like keep going on, but like, what if he spirals out of control again? You know what I mean? That could be the difference in life or death. You know what I mean? So like, obviously at the time I was really mad because I was like, man, I didn't even get a chance. Like I finally got help. I finally got everything that I've wanted. And I didn't even get a chance to like use it or prove myself, you know what I mean? But in that same vein, it's like to them, it's like, you know, we can't sit there and watch you die. You know what I mean?
There's like
both sides, yeah.
There's like a year. There's like a year off from touring as well, and then kind of coming back, but then having to cancel the tour, right? So I think there seem outside looking in, there seemed to be, you know, it's like, okay, well, how much longer, you know?
Yeah. Well, I mean, addicts are really good at like keeping it a secret until it's not, because like I had been like out of control for a while, but I'd pull it together on tour. And I don't think they really started to see how bad it was until like it was like already at the worst, because I mean, I would drink a lot on tour, but I would still like get on stage and I would do my job, you know, sometimes not that well. But then I'd get home and I would just go on these benders. Like I remember, I moved to this different apartment and I purposely didn't even tell anyone where I lived because I didn't want anyone to save me, you know? So I would come home to this apartment. No one knew where I was. And I would just go on benders for like days, weeks, sometimes months. And then I would kind of like clean up, go through the horrible withdrawals, kind of get myself back together and then go on tour. And eventually the lifestyle I had at home translated to the lifestyle I had on the road, because, you know, that shit just slowly slips more and more out of control. Yeah. So they didn't really, I mean, the warning signs were there, but they didn't really, I don't think they realized how bad it was until it was already bad. And, you know, to their credit, this was something that they'd never gone through before either. Like they were trying to handle it the best they could. You know, but it was just like I was really upset at the time, obviously, and it fucked me up for a long time. But like I said, like now I'm honestly grateful for it. You know what I mean? Because if I personally feel like I could have kept myself together, because the reason I relapsed after the fact was because I was miserable. It's like I don't even know who I am anymore. But you never know. Like maybe I couldn't have, and if I would have lost control again, that literally could have, it could have been the difference between me being here, me being 6 feet under. So, and
Yeah.
all the stuff I faced, like on the side, like turned me into who I am today, and like I am so grateful for that. That like I'm honestly glad everything happened that way.
Yeah, to your defense, it's completely normal to feel like something. I mean, you started it. It was like your thing. So of course you feel like people are taking something away from you, and you don't have the perspective of being healed yet, right? Like you're in it, so you don't even have the tools to even realize what's happening properly, and it must have been difficult to even put yourself at their place, because you're just like, that's my career. You're taking away my. It probably felt unfair, is what I'm saying. You started it, you're part of it, and you're just like, I'm not doing well. I want to get help, but I'm still out, type thing. From my understanding, it probably felt like that. So there's also that perspective as well. Like with perspective, it's different. But when you're in and you're going through stuff, it just feels unfair for sure.
I was just ignorant to what real life was. Cause like, I remember like the whole time I was in rehab, like I was of the understanding that when I got out, we would finish the record we were working on, we'd go back on tour. Like I wasn't like,
that was my question.
At all.
Was there an album?
Well, yeah, I mean, I left, we were recording an album, and I left, I flew home drove home from LA, was driven home to go to rehab. And while I was in rehab, I was told that the record was put on pause. But I didn't find out that they moved on from me until like the last couple of days of me being in rehab. And that was another thing I was really upset about, because I was like, man, I've been getting therapy like 4 to 5 times a day for weeks now, and I should have been preparing for this, but I wasn't. But at the same time, I was feeling confident. I was like, like I kind of felt like a monk. I kind of felt like I was overconfident. It's like I've been getting all this healing. So like I didn't fight it really. Like when they said they were moving on, like I kind of like gave them, it's like, keep doing what you're doing. I didn't fight. I didn't try to like take the name or anything. And because I was feeling really confident. But I like, as soon as I walked out of those rehab doors, man, it felt like I just face planted, and it got worse and worse. And reality is a hard thing to face when you've avoided it for so long. You know what I mean?
Yeah, especially after, again, not to go back to that, but like you go out of high school and it's all and then you go all through these things. It feels like, once it probably felt like one step in that direction, 10 step back. You know what I mean? Like you go to rehab, you're finally there. Oh no, you're out. It's just like, you know what I mean? Like, can you freaking give me a chance, So, but, to see, with all of that in mind, to see you now thriving like that is amazing. I gotta say, not to move too far from the topic, but it's just cool to see you now thriving with music, the streams, like the place you're in. It's just, it makes it very powerful and heartwarming. I gotta say, it's cool.
Yeah. I mean, there was a part of me, like, since I never had a regular job, there was a part of me that was like looking at it as an opportunity. It's like, okay, like I'm going to go get a job. I'm going to have regular money for once. Cause when you're in a band, the money comes and goes, and you're never on that schedule where you get paid every 2 weeks. So I was like looking forward to, I was okay, I've never done this. It'll be nice to have like a steady paycheck. And I was like looking at like all the bright sides of things. And then went and did it. Like I got into a job that I absolutely hated. It was a manual labor factory job, but I was like sticking to it because I was telling myself, like, you don't really hate it. You're just being a pussy. Like I was just putting up with it and putting it up with it while beating up myself. You know what I mean? And then like after a while, I remember I had this like epiphany. Like I was really depressed, and I was just sitting there. I was like, why the fuck? Like, why should I bother being sober if I'm this miserable? You know what I mean? And that just kind of set things in motion. But, like I said, everything that happened, it's good that I did, because it is something that I needed to learn, and I needed to learn about myself, because I didn't even know who I was. You know what I mean? Like I identified myself as this person in this band, but I didn't even know who the real me was. You know what I mean? So like finding that out and like learn, seeing real life and like understanding struggle and understanding what happens. Like if you let yourself slip, there's not going to be someone there to babysit you. Like you're going to fall on your face and you're going to have to like pull yourself up. And I feel like I learned a lot of really valuable lessons throughout that whole thing, you know?
Yeah, it's a lot. Do you remember also, because like I heard you talked about working out, right, during that time. So I'm kind of curious to know, during at what time maybe you kind of had the, okay, I'm going to start working out, like the relationship with that maybe, and how it helped with how you felt type thing.
I mean, it was all like kind of learning to love myself. You know what I mean? It's like, all right, like I've been killing myself slowly for so long, and I needed some sort of hobby too, because it's like I don't have music anymore. But it's like, I'm sober, like I should be healthy. Like I've been beating up my body for so long. So just like the gym helped me, like obviously be healthy for the first time in like 15 years. But it gave me a hobby. It gave me something to do. It gave me like an outlet instead of just like turning to drink. But it was all this process of just learning to love myself. Cause like I didn't realize that I didn't love myself until like this whole thing happened. And like not loving myself was a reason why I kept letting myself slip back into the dark. You know what I mean? So yeah, it was just like, all right, if I'm going to do this, I need to do it. You know what I mean?
Makes sense. Makes a lot of sense. I love hearing that, because like it can actually be a game changer, just where, and you don't have to be like ripped or go to the gym like freaking 70 times like during your week, but just this effort of showing up for yourself type thing, like just the fact of doing it, even if it's like 20 minutes, the fact that you did it, you felt like you did what you had to do, right? So, and it's coming from someone, I'm extremely anxious all the time, and it's game changer in my life. I cannot tell you the amount of time that I feel horrible, and just a quick workout, we're talking like 20 minutes, and my the way I feel entirely changed. All those problems feel super small, and I'm just like, what was my problem like 20 minutes ago,
Yeah, I mean, that was a big thing too, like that, because when you work out, you get a natural serotonin boost, you know what I mean? And that serotonin boost was something I only had when I was turning to my vices. So it's like I'd go, and it's like you said, I'd be bummed, I'd be depressed, I just worked a full day of work at a job that I hated, but then I go to the gym, and all of a sudden it's like, and you start seeing the progress too. You start putting on muscle, and you just start feeling good about yourself. Like, that if you go, you feel good, you'll feel good after, you'll start liking the way you look, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, it's like fitness really is like, like I preach that a lot, even though I've fallen off my fitness game hard, but like that was like a big part to like why I was able to stay sober, was having that, you know what I mean? So I've always encouraged people that are like struggling with like depression or substance abuse. It's like, yo, get to the gym, just start going. It's hard to start going, but once you get there, like your mind's going to be blown, like how much better you feel. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Sometimes just a misconception too. In my brain, somehow I always felt like I was just like, oh no, gym is for people. I felt like I wasn't someone who would train likely. I'm just like, I was a skateboarder. It's just not me. But like, you finally realize it's for anyone. Like, there's no rules. You don't have to be a certain way. You don't have to have those huge goals of doing like shows or whatever. You can just, casually start training, and you're going to feel better. So, and there's so many ways to can do cardio. Like, it's not only like weight training, you can do anything as long as you move. That's the game changer, especially for mental health. Just move, do something. So yeah, that's very interesting. It's cool to hear.
Yeah, I think that's a big part for like people too, is like, everything in life is always viewed as so cliquey, you know what I mean? So when you think of like going to the gym, it's like, oh, look at, like, I'm not a Chad, I'm not a bro, like I can't fit in with these guys, you know what I mean? But it's like you go there, and most of the people in the gym community are really positive too. Like they're really welcoming. It's like, it doesn't matter like what you look like, it doesn't matter like your fitness level. It's like, dude, you're here, like let's get it, and you'll always run into like some people that suck, that's just the factor of life. But yeah, I mean, I feel like even the gym community is just like a lot of the people that are there for the right reasons, like really welcome just anybody and are just stoked. It's like, yeah, because they know, they're like, okay, you're about to start feeling really good about yourself. And I was in that position before that, and I'm just stoked for you, you know?
Yeah, and it is surprising because, like, I'm honest, I was terrified the first time I went to the gym, and it was a big gym, and I was just like, oh my God. And there's someone who came to me because obviously I was horrible. I didn't know what I was doing, and I was just like, there it is. I'm gonna, like, first day, something's gonna happen. And the guy was so cool, you know, like huge guy. He's just like, hey, I'm just gonna tell you. It's so nice. And I was just like, oh, okay. Or it's not like the movies. We're good. People are just stoked. They're great, you know. It's even similar to, like, I talked about skateboarding. It's kind of similar in that way. People are just stoked to see, like, new faces and people around, you know. So people shouldn't be scared, is what I'm saying, to start working out or whatever, you know. It's a cool community.
Yeah. I mean, even just, I mean, being social in general, I feel like there's a lot of people that struggle, like, being social. It's like you go there and you feel like everyone's looking at you and stuff like that. But, like, just put your headphones on and just go to work. Like, I'm really good. As long as I got my headphones on, like, I could disassociate like a motherfucker. You know what I mean? And before you know it, like, as soon as you start going, the time flies. Like, it may suck. It may feel like a drag to get there. And once you're there, you're like, fuck, I don't want to do this. But, like, after the first couple of exercises, it's like, you know, you're in the zone. It's game time. Let's go.
Yeah, exactly. It's crazy how anxiety brings you in a mindset that, like, you're picturing the absolute worst. Like I cannot even.
Yeah.
I don't even know how I did skateboarding without. I mean, like, I don't even know how I jumped something. But, like, your mind goes through some places, and it never basically happened. You're scared of being scared. You're just like, oh, that's gonna happen. Next thing you know, you're just like, everything was fine, dude. Can you just relax a little bit? So
yeah, I feel like with anxiety, we just, speaking for myself at least, it's like we try to predict the future, and, like, we put ourselves in this scenario that we think's going to happen, and then we just imagine all the worst ways and all the shitty things that could happen, and it, like, can deter you from actually doing it. You know what I mean? But then you get there and it's like, why do I even stress out about this? You know what I mean? Like, this is fine. Everything's fine, you know?
yeah, exactly.
That's cool, man. I'd love to switch gears a little bit. I'd like to circle back to something you talked about earlier, about kind of creative differences within Chelsea Grin for a point. I just want to maybe get your perspective, because you ultimately spun out and did a whole bunch of other genres of music, right? You were in a post-hardcore band for a minute. You when you kind of originally came back, there was more of a rap hip hop thing going on. So talk to me a little bit about that, like, I guess exploring other styles of music and maybe what that does to you outside of heavy music. And was that kind of maybe a part of, you know, wanting to keep Chelsea Grin heavy because you knew you maybe had these other outlets elsewhere if you wanted to? Like, was that a part of that conversation in your head?
I mean, not really, because like, we were really indecisive about our sound during the time that deathcore was fading. You know what I mean? So it was like we were in this stage where it's like the genre of music we play isn't very popular anymore. So, like, a lot of bands had to evolve with the times, you know? So it's like we either evolve and we start doing something a little bit different, or we fall off the face of the earth. And we had been touring, like, all the biggest bands at that point were the bands that were, like, kind of like post-hardcore, that, like, had, like, really singy choruses and like, that were really catchy, you know? And that was honestly kind of the direction that I wanted to go in. Like, I still wanted to be really heavy, but I kind of wanted to, like, lean into, like, doing, like, some chorusy stuff and some, like, singing stuff, because that was the way of the scene at the time. You know what I mean? So that was a part of that, but I think I feel like every deathcore band went through that, because you were faced with the choice. It's like, okay, like I said, we either evolve or we die, and this is our career, this is our job. So I feel like a lot of bands probably went through the same thing, and there wasn't really an answer. It's like, we can't change too much, but I mean, like you said too, like, having those other outlets helped me a lot too. Like, that's kind of the reason why I did the whole Hearts and Hands thing, because I wanted to do music like that. So I was like, fine, I'll just do it in a different band. You know what I mean? And, like,
yeah.
I've always loved hip hop too. Like, when I jumped into hip hop, like, I wasn't even really doing it as, like, a serious thing. You know, it's just like, okay, I just spent 10 years on the road playing metal and all this stuff. Now I'm not touring anymore. I'm just going to do something for fun. I've always liked rap. So like, let's just try it. You know what I mean? But that 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 got so much hate too. And I feel like that played a big part into like me thinking that like, I just don't belong in the music industry anymore. Cause it's like, man, like I got shit on for leaving. I got shit on for doing something new. It's like, if I'm just going to constantly get shit on, then like I'd kind of taken the fun out of it. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But it's funny though, because like I feel like if I would put out like that same style of music on the side now, like I don't think it would be like vastly popular by any means, but I feel like it would have been received a lot better just because people are way more open-minded now, you know?
Right. And probably
like,
maybe
you fucking sell out.
yeah, people you're putting out deathcore now too, right? So maybe having the two versus like, I guess for some people it maybe felt like get back to, you know, go back and do the dance, do the deathcore thing, please. Let's not do this hip hop thing. That's probably how some people felt, right?
It's like, hey, you know how he told you that you sucked doing that stuff? Go back to doing the stuff that you sucked at, because this stuff sucks even more.
And these same people would have still be negative about, you know what I mean? You would have go back to deathcore. You would have released something similar to the early days or whatever, and you would have put that out, and these same people would have been like, no, it's not. So it's, you cannot win with these people.
Well, I mean, that happened too, because like when I
that first track,
the whole Chelsea Grin thing happened, like I was like, I still have all these songs that I wrote, I still have all these lyrics, I still have all this shit. So I put out that what I was under the name Grudges, but I was still doing deathcore. I put out that song Misery, and I was really proud of that song, and it got really shit on, which is kind of crazy because I feel like if I would have released that same song now, it would have gotten so much more love. But like, even then I was like, okay, like if I'm just going to get shit on no matter what I do, I'm just going to do stuff that I'm going to have fun with and not give a fuck, you know?
It's crazy though, how like intense these people, you know what I mean? Like it feels like a personal thing. It's just like, we're mad at you. Like we don't like, can you just like, cool
you can
it?
just
like,
not listen to it. It's chill.
Yeah.
You know? Move on with your day.
You. Yeah. Like no one is forcing you. Just chill, man. You know? So it's crazy to hear.
It was the vibe of the scene, and it wasn't even just the fans. It was the vibe that the bands were putting off too. So I just feel like that stuff is contagious, you know, like if all the bands kind of have a negative outlook, then the fans are going to have a negative outlook. So it's going to turn into a negative scene. You know what I mean? And like it just how it became contagious the other way. All of a sudden people started being positive, and the bands are being positive and the fans are being positive. But yeah, I think it's just kind of part of the process. It's so weird how the genre like popped, died, and then popped again. You know what I mean? But it was good for it. It was healthy for it.
It's very special. And do you remember, if it's not too personal of a question, when you came back, did you get maybe some message of just like welcome back, but from people of the scene, right? That you were touring maybe back then, or just like glad to see you back? Did you get a couple messages like that maybe, or comments, I guess?
Yeah, because I feel like once I stopped touring with like, because I made like all of my best friends on tour, you know what I mean? And once I was out of the scene, I wasn't touring anymore. So I wasn't seeing the people that I grew very close with. And it kind of just felt like, I don't know, like it kind of felt like I was forgotten about for like a really long time, you know? So it was cool to start seeing it like, oh, we're glad you're back. And it's like you are, that's kind of weird, you know, but I will say that shout out to Franz, because during the time that like I was telling myself like I can't do this anymore, it's bad for me, there was a lot of voices around me that were telling me the same thing, like this is bad for you, you need to do something else. And so I was believing it. But I remember Franz like from day one was like, dude, why don't you start another deathcore band? Like what? Like he was like the only one that was like saying like still do it. You know, but since he was the only one, I didn't really listen, you know. And I remember when we put out the first Ameonna EP, him and I were talking, and I was like, dude, thank you. I feel like you were like one of the only people that pushed me to do the thing that I loved, you know. And like, it was crazy that I let myself forget that I love it just because I was listening to all these outside noises. But like you were right. You're right from the jump, you know, like I should have just kept doing it. So that was pretty cool.
It's crazy the difference it can make sometimes. You never know, right? Just a little, hey man, you know what I mean? Like just a little act of kindness sometimes. It's like a few words, but like people sometimes forget the difference really that it can make, especially when you feel, because that's something people forget. You probably felt alone in a lot of those times, right? Even
Oh
if
yeah. Oh yeah.
people think you're surrounded, you're just like, oh my god, this person, but people forget how sometimes lonely you become. So just a little message like that took like 3 minutes probably to just say like, dude, keep going, but can make a huge difference. So
I mean, honestly, that was one of the hardest parts because like like not only did I like lose Chelsea Grin, but like the girl that I was dating at the time, like she left too. So it was like I literally lost everything all at once. And there were times when like I just felt like so alone, and it felt suffocating. You know what I mean? I mean, luckily I've had Bodhi, like my dog Bodhi, like it sounds kind of silly, but he like saved my life because during those times where I felt like so alone, at least I had him, you know what I mean? And that companionship, like it made a huge difference, man. Like I'm so lucky to have had him. And it seems like such a small thing to just have, you know, but like a dog is my best friend, you know?
It's, by the way, just want to say on the record, it's not silly like at all. You're talking to two people. First of all, Dom right here. I don't know if his dog is, yeah, it's probably there. Okay, there you go. You know, I met that dog once so far, and like I would protect that dog at all costs. Like I think I would die for that dog. So
it's the unconditional love, man. Cause it's like, no matter what you do, they love you. They don't view you as like a scumbag or a piece of shit. Like even if you're viewing yourself as a scumbag, they just love you. And I feel like everyone needs that love, especially like when you're in such a like low spot, like that just helps. It's like, okay, like I can't fuck up because I'm the one who takes care of him. So if I fuck up, then there's no one here to take care of him. So I got to keep my shit straight because I fucking love this dog, you know?
Yes, it should be also recognized. Not to go on a tangent, but like it should be recognized more. You know, all the jobs that I had, sometimes I was a manager and people would call me and they couldn't come in because they lost a dog or whatever. Like some other managers sometimes would kind of laugh at it, like, oh my God, like it's nothing. And I would be like, are you serious? Like, yeah, take your time and stuff like that, you know? Like, dogs are family, man. It should be like just a statement. It should be clear. Dogs are family, period, you know? Don't. So it doesn't sound silly. It's actually cool. Who knows, you know, maybe without him and stuff, it could make all the difference. So
yeah,
it's
I
cool
mean, I think
hear.
it really did too. I love that boy.
You know?
He's a cute one too. Big boy, eh?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's huge. I think he may be even a little bit fat right now, but that's okay.
It's just when we love
happy.
him, eh? Yeah.
He's fat and happy.
Exactly. No, it's cool, man. I just want to say, also, like, we're not that we're done or anything, but I just want to say thanks for sharing so much with us, dude. Like, it really it means a lot, you know, to us, and as people who looked up to you a lot as well, and also as someone who's super anxious. I mean, it hits home. Every single thing you're saying, I'm like, yeah, okay, so. We really appreciate you sharing. And I've seen in our chat, you know, people were just like really grateful. So really appreciate you, man. It's really cool. I'm sure it's going to help a lot of people. So,
well, I'm glad, man, because honestly, like it helps me being honest and I guess being vulnerable about it. And that's another reason why I do it too, because like I'm perfectly. Sometimes I feel like I overshare. But that's kind of like my outlook on it. It's like when I was first struggling, like there were stories that I heard from like, you know, people that would come to the rehab to like tell their story, or like when I was going to AA, just hearing someone's story, there was certain people that when I heard their story, it was like really game changing to me. You know what I mean? To be able to relate and just be like, oh, like I'm not alone. Like you've been through this too. Like, it's not like I'm just going through something completely unique. You know, and these are the things that you did to get over it. Like, I need to try that too. So that's another reason why I'm so content with sharing. Cause like, even if someone, like one person could like latch onto something I said and use that to try to like better themselves, then that's fucking great, you know?
yeah, it would be worth it even if it would save one person, right? It's already worth it. One person, it's already worth sharing. And it's also, you say like, I'm not alone, but in a way, I don't know for you, but it's also like, I wasn't alone during those times kind of thing, because you tell a story and maybe in the timeline, it's just like all that time that I felt alone in the world feeling like that, I wasn't. these people that I looked up to, or maybe I thought were super confident, didn't have those problems. They had the same freaking problem as I had. So you feel it's kind of healing in that way. Like I wasn't alone all that time too, right? So
yeah, I mean, you kind of you kind of learn not to be so like selfish, and like I don't even feel like you realize you're being selfish, but like when you're in these hard times, it's easy to fall into like that victim mentality, like, oh, woe is me, like, well, like the world's crashing down around me, me, and then like you kind of see it's like, especially when you start to realize how common like addiction is, and like how many people have experienced it in some way or another, whether it be themselves or a family member or a friend. You realize that like this is real. This is a real part of life, and there's a lot of people that have gotten through it. So like you can too, and that counts not just for addiction, but like any dark phase in your life. You kind of gotta. I mean, sometimes it's easier to feel sorry for yourself and want someone else to feel sorry for you, because then you feel vindicated. It's like, but getting out of that and like kind of like, okay, like I'm not a victim. Like this is my situation. How do I make it better? How do I get out of it? And that's when I feel like you start really making some progress. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's really well said, actually. And to maybe like I just take us back to the music real quick. I'm really curious when you recorded, when you went back with this new mindset, right? With the plays that everything you went, did you have that in mind a little bit as maybe as performing or writing or whatever? Like did your mind kind of not use that, but like went there with all that progress? Like I'm here, kind of that powerful, just like I went through all of that. Here I am. Like did your mind go there as you were recording music?
I mean, definitely. Like I mean, I had a chip on my shoulder because like I always felt from like the very beginning that like I had something to prove, and I thought I was going to have that chance to be able to prove it. And then, everything happened. But I kept that chip on my shoulder. Like I was like, I still got it. Like I could be better than ever. Like now that my focus is right, now that I'm like, remembering the important things in life and like remembering this is my passion. Like I really didn't even feel nervous. Like I was like, I've been waiting for this moment to like, and, looking back, it was more like just proving it to myself too. It's like, I wanted to prove to myself that I could do it. And like, I still got it. Cause I don't know. I just kept that chip on my shoulder for the longest time. And it made it easier too, that like the whole, like all my lyrics, I was just writing about like my struggles, and it just like, it was therapeutic. Cause it's like, I've had all this shit bottled up inside for so long. And now I get to, express it in my art form, and this is an art form that I took for granted. Like I didn't realize how much it helped me, and now it's back. And I was just like, I was there, dude. I was, like I said, like the first two EPs, like I didn't feel any sort of pressure. I was like, let's fucking do this, which is why it's kind of funny that I felt so much pressure with the third EP. But yeah, like what you said though, like I was ready. How I wanted to, I had something to prove to everyone and to myself,
Cool, man. I think you did for what it's for what it's worth. I think you definitely did, like just seeing how welcoming it is. And I've seen thousands of times people being like, oh my God, his level of vocals now, even as a, performer and all of that, it's crazy, like you came back, but stronger than ever. You give classes, you know what I mean? Like you're confident, you do your music, you stream, you talked about anxiety and stuff but yet you do all those things and you do it really well. So I think it's inspiring for a lot of people and for your community. So it's awesome, man.
Yeah. Thank you, man. I hope so. I mean, you kind of just got to do it, like the anxiety is going to be there. And it's not like you could just turn it off. So you kind of just got to get yourself in the mindset of just like doing it, forcing yourself to do it. Yep. And then you kind of realize that you're capable of doing it,
Exactly. Yeah. Well said.
Let's maybe wind this down with, I think we should talk about what's next for the band.
Yeah.
What's coming up? What, obviously you guys just dropped the EP, so y'all will be floating on that for a second, I'm sure. I know you guys have some merch out right now that's still up for a couple more days. But what are the plans? What are you guys kind of looking at for moving forward with the band, or just you in general? But the band as well. I
mean, I don't know. I feel like I don't really want to call it a weird place, but like It's kind of hard to describe because like the hunger's there, the passion is there. But when we first started this band, like we kind of said like let's put out music, let's not worry about touring, let's not worry about all this stuff, let's just do it for fun. But like now that it's out, like I personally, like I've gone back and forth on it, but like I do want to tour and I do want to play shows again. We're just kind of in a place now. Like it was a lot easier when we were kids and didn't have a lot of responsibilities. But like Jake in particular, he's married, he has 2 kids, he has a business that he runs, and he's always busy. I have all my stuff here. Like Pablo has his stuff going on. But like it's there, and I know it's there because we'll talk about it sometimes, and like you could feel the passion towards it. But I think what it's really going to it's just going to take one of our albums or one of our songs to like really take off. Like if we put out an album or if we have a single that like really gets to the point where like we can't refuse it, you know what I mean? I think that's kind of what it's going to take. Yeah. And I don't know. It's kind of, it could go either way. Like I honestly I don't even really know. Like we're going to keep writing music. Like we already have songs that we have written. We've talked about doing a full length next. So we're just going to keep going, and we're just going to kind of like follow the vibes. Really. We're going to keep putting out music. And if an opportunity arises, that's a good opportunity, then there's no way we wouldn't take it, you know?
I feel also like, not to give any suggestion or whatever, but I feel like a video would do super well. I mean, Pablo, like I feel like a video with a song would probably like hit a lot too.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about it, but that's also the downside of being independent is because all that shit's really expensive, and everything comes out of our own pocket. We're actually going to do a video for Cut Me Crave Me. But then like it just became too much, like even just recording and putting out merch, like the shit's so fucking expensive. You know what I mean? Like it's crazy how much money you got to front to be able to do stuff like this. Yeah. But we've been talking about a video because I agree. I think a video would be awesome.
You have a certain image as well. You know what I mean? Like with all the so I feel, I don't know. Like in my mind, I'm just like, I think it would do well. But you're right, though. It's insane. I don't think people know how expensive it is to make like a good,
a good one.
A good video.
Yeah.
Obviously, you could do one with your phone, but I mean, like a real good video. It's like we're talking. It's insane. So, but I'm just saying, I'm sure it would do well. All you need now is kind of a moment, right? It's weird. You need like one moment, like just a moment, and everything changes. So
yeah, really. Like, I mean, it just takes, because we've had a really good reception for these records. But yeah, we just need, like you said, we just need that one song to like really take off, or like all of a sudden like our plays like shoot through the roof, because then it's undeniable. It's like we have to tour, you know what I mean? Yeah. But we don't really want to start over again, because we've worked our way from the bottom to the top before, and it took years, and some of it was like really hard, you know what I mean? Now that we're older, we just don't really have that much freedom to like, we can't like take that big of a risk now, whereas before it was like, fuck yeah, we're 16, who cares? So yeah, we're just kind of waiting, if that moment, whatever that moment is, that if it happens, then we're going to be there to take advantage of it, but we're just following the vibe, man. Whatever the universe gives us, we're just going to roll with it.
I say this a lot to people on the show, because we talk to a lot of people in a kind of similar situation where they're maybe kind of old heads, OGs to the scene, and are maybe coming back with some new music or coming back with the same project, but in 2025. And man, show opportunities are so different now also than what it used to be. Like it doesn't, being in a band now doesn't have to mean grinding out on tour 7 months out of the year. It can be just festival appearances. It can be limited touring. It can, can be so much less intensive of, to your point, Jacob's he's got 2 kids and all this stuff. There are ways to work around that stuff. I think as in 2025, it's maybe a little bit kinder to people in those sort of situations, for performance wise, at least. But
yeah, I mean, we've even talked about that. Like we've talked like we kind of said that we weren't going to tour from day one, but from day one, we also said that like, oh, but we could play shows. Like maybe we could do like a West Coast run or just like a festival run or like, so we want to play shows, again, it's just kind of the right offer has to fall into our lap, like if someone like a festival offer falls into our lap or like maybe like a tour offer, if it's just kind of like right place at right time type of thing, you know what I mean? And then we'll take advantage of it if it's right, you know what I mean? But, just we're playing it a little bit more on the safer side, but at the same time, like we're all hungry to do it, so I guess we'll just see what happens.
Yeah. Putting it out there in the universe at the minimum.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm
just
ready,
the fact that
man.
you guys are open, just the fact that you're open to it, because it could have been like, no, there's, like there was no, we're just not doing it. So for all the fans, just knowing that you're open to it is already like it's huge. So
yeah, I mean, I was on the fence about it. Because like I've always missed it, you know what I mean? But I was kind of on the fence just because you kind of get comfortable in your own little cave, you know what I mean? But as time has gone on, like I've been more for it. Like honestly, like I'm more for it now than I have ever been, So if that opportunity that we're talking about comes, like I'll be the one that says like, let's go, let's do this. And like, we've always talked about too that like if we need to tour, like maybe if Jake needs to stay home, that he would just like stay home and like, handle the band's like management duties and stuff. And we could have like hire on guitarists, hire on whatever. So yeah, I feel like we're closer now than we've ever been, but yeah, just waiting for that sign, I guess.
all right.
That's cool, man. What else? I want to let you kind of shout out whatever you want to shout out in terms of what you've got going on. Obviously, you've got the stream, you do the vocal coaching stuff. Yeah. Tell the people where they can find you, what you're up to, what to expect. What's the floor is yours.
Yeah. I mean, we just put out a new record called The Birth of Death. Our merch store is coming down on Sunday, so make sure to take advantage of that. It's all limited quantities, so if you see something you like, snag it now before it's gone. And then as far as like personal stuff, I have my stream, AK_grudges. I do vocal lessons. I've started to dip my toes into like ghostwriting. I've already got like a gig helping someone write their music, and that's kind of more what I want to step into. So if you're in a band and if you've had trouble writing vocals or writing lyrics or writing structure, like hit me up. You could find my email and the links on all my bios and social media. Like I'm all about writing music. So if you need help, like let's do it. Like let's create bangers.
Yeah, and I'm gonna add to that like as someone who's part of your stream, it's awesome. So like seriously, if you just want like a cool community, hanging out and having fun, nerding out also on stuff, talking about anything. Sometimes we go on these sometimes it's my fault, but like we talk about spirituality and huge topics, and it's super fun and it's very welcoming. There's like no toxicity whatsoever. Everybody's super cool. So like the stream is like a very cool experience. I'm just adding on to
yeah, not to brag, but my community fucking rules. So if you're someone that's shy or maybe like you've never joined in on like a live stream, like just do it. Like Jan said, like sometimes we're just being goofy as fuck. Sometimes we're having real talks. We're kind of all over the place, but as soon as you pop in, you're going to feel welcomed by everyone. Like, so just try it one time. I bet you'll like it. Join the crew.
There we go.
Really
Well,
cool.
Well, dude, thank you so much, man, for taking the time to do this and for hanging out with us tonight. I'm gonna let you get on with the rest of your night, but I really, really enjoyed this. There is so much more we could have tapped into. So open invitation. If you ever want to slide back on, you got some new music, you want to talk about it, anything like that, the door's open.
Yeah, just hit me up. I had a blast too. Thanks for having me on. I'm down to do it whenever. So
we're gonna have to reinvite you, dude, because like you said, even me, there's a lot of stuff I would like to talk. I love self-inflicted too. There's a lot of stuff we can talk. So we're gonna have to reinvite you for sure, dude.
Sounds good, man.
Oh yeah, well,
have
a great night, man. Yeah, we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks everyone for tuning in.
If you made it to the end of this episode, thank you for watching. And hey, while you're here, hit that subscribe or follow button. and a review. If you're watching or listening on a podcast platform, it would mean the world and it helps out more than you know. A big thank you as well to all of our supporters over on Patreon and on Twitch. New episodes every week, links to our Patreon, Discord, and socials in the description. We'll see you soon. We're out.